Salut! This video is dedicated to the third past tense you have to recognize and understand for your GCSE, le plus-que-parfait or pluperfect in English. As usual, I will explain qu'est-ce que c'est, what is le plus-que-parfait, and how it works. Le plus-que-parfait is a combination of the two first tenses we have been learning in this passé module. Those two tenses are l'imparfait et le passé composé. You will use this tense, the pluperfect, to speak about an action that took place before another one in the past. This will correspond to your I had listened in English, as opposed to the passé composé or perfect tense, which was I have listened or I listened. So the pluperfect is I had listened. Just like in English, we will use a double past in French, using the passé composé structure, made out of our two-verb structure, the auxiliary être or avoir, and the past participle form of the verb you need. But here, your auxiliary will have to be at the imperfect tense instead of the present tense, which we needed for the passé composé. That's why I like to call this tense the past of the past. So basically, le plus-que-parfait is made of être or avoir, your auxiliary, at the imperfect, plus the past participle of the verb you need to translate. As we are following the same pattern than the one we've seen in the passé composé, the logic on how to know or how to choose which one out of être or avoir you would need will be exactly the same than we've seen for the passé composé. Your teacher's Dr. and Mrs. Van der Trump mnemotechnic tip will work perfectly well, but also the one I've given you in the previous lesson on the passé composé, knowing if the action is happening to a part of your body, you will use avoir. But if the action is happening to your whole self, then you will have to go for the auxiliary être, to be. Don't also forget the pronominal verb or the se verb described in another module on this chapter. The se verbs are actually action happening to yourself, so you will use the verb être. You will find a reminder of the verb corresponding to the Dr. and Mrs. Van der Trump list on page 4, as well as another list for the irregular verbs with their irregular past participle form, which will be the past participle is the second part of your two-verb structure, which we need for the plus-que-parfait. Remember also to agree if your verbs work with the auxiliary être. Don't forget that you will need to add an E in some cases if it's feminine or an S if it's plural. Now you have all of the information and you understand the logic to it. Let's have a little try before you jump into the quiz. The easiest way will be to use the same example than the one we had for the passé composé. So you can easily compare them together and see what the difference is. Starting with the verb écouter, which is to listen. Can you remember what is the past participle of écouter? Oui, parfait. So écouter ER, the infinitive, will do the past participle in écouter E accent. You remove the ER of the infinitive and you put your E accent, since it's a regular verb. Now, we must find out whether we will need the auxiliary être or the auxiliary avoir. I listen. Are you listening with the entire body or are you listening with only one part of your body? You're right, you're listening with your ear. Correct. So yes, we will use avoir. You're just using one part of your body. Bravo, you got it. Okay, so we have the past participle, écouter E accent. We know we need the auxiliary avoir, and this time we need it at the imperfect, perfect, because if you wanted it at the present, that would be the passé composé. Can you remember what this will be? Exactly. Imparfait start with a I, imparfait, and end with est, imparfait. So it is this form doing avait. J'avais, tu avais, il avait, nous avions, don't forget the I, vous aviez, et ils avaient, il with an S, avait, A-I-E-N-T. Well done. So we wanted to translate I had listened, which will be all together, j'avais écouté. I had, j'avais écouté, listened. That's it. So the same logic will be for I had gone, where we will use être. Remember, for to go, aller, we use être. Now we need être add the imperfect, which is j'étais, and aller. Don't forget to add the I if you're a girl for je, as you're speaking about, or if you're speaking about a girl for she, do not forget the I or the S as you're working with the verb être. Et voilà, you did it. Let's not forget our negation, which will be just like for the passé composé. You will sandwich the auxiliary with ne and pas, making our example, je n'avais pas écouté et je n'étais pas allé. Again, don't forget your agreement I or S. All in all, le plus que parfait is a very simple tense, but it's also very useful as it's allowing you to refresh and practice your two most crucial past tenses, the imperfect and the passé composé. Don't forget the quiz, as this is the perfect opportunity to practice your plus que parfait, of course, but also le passé composé and the imperfect all together, as they use the same principle. Just remember here, we want the auxiliary at the imperfect and not at the present. Voilà. Parfait. Merci beaucoup. Bon courage et à tout de suite dans une autre vidéo.